Hello, welcome back to the channel. This is my DIY wet room. Saved £7,000. This is the ensuite attached to our bedroom. So we designed this to open up the space that we had because it's only quite a small room and just maximize that space. So we've got more room in the shower and more room around the sink area. And just did it to a high standard. Watch the video and I'll show you exactly what I did. It's quite detailed. And by the end of the video, you should have a good idea of what to do if you want to tackle this yourself at home. So here is our bathroom as it was before. You can see why I did it. You can see the horrible old toilet sink, and then it had like a corner shower cubicle with rattly doors, and it was just horrible to stand in. So this is why we had to revamp the whole bathroom. Our bathroom had coving in, and I wanted to remove this so I could tile up to the ceiling. I did use a scraper, but found it quicker just smashing it up with the hammer, as you can see here. Taking off coving does make quite a bit of a mess, as you can see. It's all over the floor. The next thing I did was to draw out, you can see on the right hand side, the black lines. We drew out the vanity unit in the toilet in different positions just to see where it had fit the best. And I think this is quite important because it gives you a good idea of how much room you're going to have. I took up some floorboards so I could see what was going on underneath, because my shower tray sat on top of my floorboards before, with the drainage, as you can see there, going above the floorboards, and it was boxed in on the wall, so it was pretty ugly. So I want to get my shower plumbing waste underneath the floorboard, so I just need to make sure there's no joists in the way, and make sure I can run it to that soil pipe that's on the right hand side. So I found the soil pipe, so I needed to drill a hole the size of a 40mm waste pipe, and you get like a rubber bung that goes into the soil pipe that secures the waste pipe. So the first thing to do was to drill that hole for that, as you can see there. I then prepared the surface of the hole by sanding it down so I could use some PVC cement to secure the fitting. This is me applying the cement with the cotton bud that comes in the tin, and you just put that quite generously around the hole, then insert the fitting onto there. I just pushed the fitting onto the pipe and then pressed it in place, and I let it set there for a good 24-48 hours. I moved on to the electrics, and they're really quite simple. I just wanted some spotlights, dimmable spotlights, as you can see there in the picture, an LED strip, which was dimmable as well, on the left, and I wanted an LED mirror above the toilet area. Always get your electrics signed off by a professional and get advice about the cables you should be using. I used some 1.5mm cable for my lighting, which I ran off my original lighting circuit, and then just went and traced that down to the niche where I'd put the 12-volt LED strip light, as you can see here. And then for the LED mirror, as you can see here, I've drawn the mirror on the wall, and then traced down some 2.5mm cable from my shaver socket on the right hand side and followed that around so it's part of that circuit. I did a quick lighting test, so just to make sure the dimmer switch that I put on works with the dimming LEDs that's on the lighting circuit, and it did. You can see the LEDs dimming, and I also did the same with the LED strip light that's going in the niche, and just give that a little test. You can see that dimming. Perfect. So the shower niche. So there's a bit of planning involved here. You've got to work out where your tiles are going to finish. So my tiles that I planned on buying were 600 by 300. So basically, roughly from the floor, which you don't know that level yet because it's going to be tiled and the adhesive might be thicker or thinner than you expect. So the actual finish, where the tiles finish from the floor to the bottom of the niche, it could be out by 10mm or so. So do an estimate of where your tiles are going to finish. As in, I've guessed here with a rough measurement, so I'm going to start my niche here to make sure I can cut it out, cut the wood out, and make sure I've got a good size hole to turn into a shelf. And then at the end, I'll work to my niche. So basically I'm going to tile my floor and then work out the exact finish and tank it all off with waterproofing, and then get that level, build that level incorrect, whether I need to raise the base of the niche or make it, or sink it slightly. So it involves a bit of planning this. But basically I've cut out the plasterboard And then I'm just now cutting out the timbers with a multi-tool. They're not structural supporting timbers, they're just holding this plasterboard in place, so you can safely cut them out and then build your niche. So the vanity unit had arrived. I put that in place so I could see the size and how it fit. We have got a little gap either side. The toilet on the left is further away from the wall because we're going to have a radiator on that wall, so we're maximising that space for the toilet. We can't have it on the other side because it kind of blocks the doorway. Again, we're working with limited space, so we have to deal with what we have. So I've fast forwarded a little bit to show you the finished tiled wet room system that we've installed, and it's called the Aqua Base from Tops Tiles. So there on the left you can see the large format ceramic tile, which is basically your wet room floor. I found this easy to use. You know, you lay it like you do a normal tile. The key to do this right is the preparation beforehand, which I'm now going to take you through step by step. The ceramic tile is here, as you can see on the screen. Tops Tiles, they sell this. You can purchase this, and you can also get the large 900 by 900 tiles to match the exact colour of this tile to give you this seamless finish. The alternative to this was a sub base, and then what you do is envelope the tiles into that to form your gradient, which washes the water down. I didn't like the look of that because there was so many cuts to make in the tiles, and where you'd be stood, the grout would be there. If the grout cracks or if you get mold on the grout, you're going to have to regrout. So this, for me, was the perfect alternative, looks-wise, but also practicality. A little shout out to Tops Tiles because they supplied all the wall tiles that you can see and the floor tiles. The service was amazing. As a DIYer, I went into the store, I told them the square meterage, they calculated how much adhesive I needed, the wet room tanking kit, how many tiles I needed, just basically everything. They threw at me silicone, the correct colour silicone, the grout to match the silicone, and they bundled it all together in a basket, and I paid in one go. Because I bought it all in one transaction, Tops Tiles were really good and they gave me a bit of discount. That really helps when you're doing DIY projects on a budget. So here's the fitting guide from Tops Tiles for the Aqua Base. I'll be using the bottom one so you can see the wooden floor installation. You can put this on a concrete floor, but in my instance I'm using the wooden floor. So I'm going to show you now, step by step, how I did it. It's great to read the instructions, but to see somebody doing it in real could be really helpful for you. So I've put my Aqua Base in the position that it's going to be. I've pulled it away from the walls about 5 mil. Because you don't want that to affect the tile, because walls do expand and contract. That is now in place, so we'll then go through the step-by-step how to install the concealed system and the siphon which goes underneath the flooring. Aqua Base give you a piece of polystyrene to use as a template for your hole in your floor. It's 20 mil deep, 700 long and 140 wide. The 20 mil deep bit is quite important. If your floorboards are less than 20 mil deep, you will have to raise up your whole floor to match the 20 mil deep, because your tile needs to fit in that 20 mil hole and sink inside there. If it's too less or too much, your tile won't fit properly. It's really, really important that you get the prep work right for this, and it just pays to go that extra mile. Okay, so I've marked up where I need to cut. There's the drain hole in the center, 700 long, 140 wide. Cutting it out with my multi-tool and get that piece of floor removed. This is what's great about having the polystyrene template. So I've dropped that into the hole I've cut out just to double check my depths are all right and everything's perfect. And as you can see, that fits snug, so we're good to go to the next stage. So there's the waste siphon that you can see there. I just put that in place. You can see to the left we've got some pipes that we need to deal with. So I'll show you what I did in order to support that siphon and get it surrounded by concrete. So I built a wooden frame just level with them pipes. Luckily, they was just low enough for my siphon to sit on top of some plywood that then sit on top of them pipes. They're heating pipes, which worked in our favour, as in when the heating's on, we find that the tiles warm up, so it's almost like underfloor heating for us. This is my 40mm waste pipe. I'm going to solvent cement these. They're special pipes for solvent cement as they bond easier. I've marked up black lines so I know exactly where to put them together once the cement's on. And then you can see my waste pipe attached to my siphon. So I left this for 24 hours for the solvent cement to completely go off. And then I did a water test, and I think this is very important because this is going to be underneath your floor for years to come. So here I am just doing a water test. I pulled a full jug of water into that siphon and just checked for leaks, you know. Any tiny drips, just add a check, double check. And you can see, dry. So I did this a couple of times and all areas were perfectly dry. So I was good to go. The next stage is to get some mortar mixed up, some good strong cement, and place this in the framework that you've created. This creates a nice solid base for the siphon to sit in, preventing any movement, and also adds that little bit of extra waterproof. I strengthened the mortar with some metal plastering edging. I just put this within the mortar to stop the mortar cracking over time because it will expand and contract. And there's the finish right to the top of the siphon with the siphon hole completely flush to the new mortar. I'll let this dry for 24 hours before doing my tanking, which is the waterproofing of the whole system. Because this is a DIY project, I wanted to get my new shower fittings installed just to make sure there was no leaks and make sure they fit perfectly. So I knew that I didn't have to take any wall away and do any more plumbing work before I started tanking the whole room. So here's my new fittings. To save time on plumbing, I bought the exact same fitting as was there previously. So that just went into place without having to move the pipes in any way. I just had to cut the outlet slightly so that fit in the original hole. And there they are in place. I also did a water test, so I turned these on and ran some water into a bucket just for a tightness test to make sure there was no leaks again, because these are going to be in the wall for a long time. So where the plasterboard came down to the bathroom floor, I had a gap. So I just filled this with some plasterboard, screwed that in, and then used some filler to get this all flush, ready for my tanking. Because we're tiling onto a wooden floor, I wanted to secure this the best I could, so I got some really big, strong wood screws and screwed all the floorboards in to the joists. And all the new framework that I'd done around the siphon, I screwed all that into the joists, nice and secure, so no movement. So here's my waterproofing kit. I've got some tape. I've got the waterproofing membrane, which is Waterproof C1 by Bal. I've got a mini roller, a knife for the tape, and a paintbrush for the edges. And basically I'm going to show you now on how I did all the tanking. Okay, tanking, very important. Be generous with your membrane, because this protects your house from water leaving your bathroom. If it escapes through the tiles, it wants to hit this barrier and not make it to your house. So I'm putting the Bal C1 on generously with a mini roller there. And I'm going to put that around all the edges, all the corners. There's my closed system. So I'm putting it all in the edges of there, squidging it into all the gaps, right? With a paintbrush. It's kind of like decorating. You cut into all the edges first. Also, you want to put as many coats as possible on the edges because it's very important. So I then go on to put in the tape. So this is like reinforced edging tape, and I stick that onto the Bal C1, and I just rub that into all the edges and all the corners. So I'm doing the floor and like a quarter of the way up the wall first, because I'm going to be tiling my floor, and then I'm going to move on to the wall next. I'll put the tape all the way in the edges around the closed system, so that's doubly protected. And then on top of this tape, I'll then put more membrane. So I'll cover all the tape, all the edges, all the floor with more membrane. So you can see there, that's got another coat of the Bal C1. That's the whole floor covered in Bal C1. 2 coats. And the tape that's on the edging, it's also covered. So we're like triply protected. Do not scrimp on this stuff. And that's it. That's your floor and quartered halfway up the walls, completely tanked, ready for tiling. Big day. We're going to lay our aqua base tile. The plastic on the left hand side at the end of the tile, I've put that's PVC. It's about 5mm thick. I've put 2 of them down to come level with the top of the tile. So this is to enable me to lift the tile up and put the tile onto this PVC plastic while I lay my adhesive, and then when I lower my tile down, because of the position that it is, it makes life easier. It'll go down in position without slamming too hard, if you know what I mean, almost like a hinge door going down. So that's the reason I've done that. So this is the adhesive I've used. It's very important when on wooden floor to use flexible adhesive, and I've got the slow set because I'm not rushing this job. So I mixed my first bucket of adhesive using a standard drill and a whisk. Whisk that to a consistency where it will stay on your trowel when you hold it sideways, as you can see in the image. A quick tip as well, I'm DIY Dan, I work solo a lot of the time. I held my tile up on that wall with a screw, as you can see here, just so I could put my adhesive down without the tile falling on me. So I just got big scoops of adhesive out of the bucket and put it in blobs on the floor. Now, something for this shower tray. It has to be 3mm higher up at the non-drain end to the drain end, if that makes sense. So the water, it helps the water slope towards that way. So 3mm. So I've gone and put more adhesive on the right hand side than I have the left hand side, because I want to build that up so the levels are 3mm higher. So there's my adhesive spread, making sure that I put thicker adhesive at the non-drain end to the drain end. Now I'm going to wing this, I'm putting probably about 10mm more adhesive on that end than the drain end, and then when I put the tile down, I'll put more pressure on the drain end and a spirit level, just to make sure I've got that 3mm decline. And there's the shower tray in place. The spirit levels show the yellow one that is perfectly level, and the red one is showing a 3mm decline, which was absolutely perfect for this for the water runoff. So I got it spot on first time. I let the adhesive dry for 24 hours, and then all that's left to do is put in this plastic screw which connects the shower tray to the siphon that you put in the floor, and then the hair catcher, and finally the metal grate, which gives it this lovely stylish finish. This here is decoupling matting, the yellow stuff. So I'm going to be cutting this to size, as you can see there, and then we'll adhesive this onto the floor. And just stick that down. When you press the decoupling matting into the adhesive, make sure it fills all the holes. So you run your grout float over it, that's what I used, and press that in and let that dry for 24 hours. So I've basically got the 2 900 by 900 tiles and laid one on top of the other. Then I marked this area that needed cutting out for this doorway. I then measured from the door opening and marked it on my tile, and then took my tile to my cutting station. So this is my cutting station with a towel to prevent the tiles from slipping. And this is my diamond blade and my angle grinder. The diamond blade has diamonds around the edge and diamonds on the front and back. I use the angle grinder for these tricky cuts. So you can see here it's not a straight line. We've got like an L shape basically. And I just run my angle grinder down there carefully, not pressing too hard, and cut that shape out. And you can see that tile down there to the right in place, and the 900 by 900 above it. There's now this awkward thin sliver of a tile to cut out, which I'll do with the angle grinder. So the first thing I do is score where I want to cut. This is all freehand, so I do a nice steady hand score. And then I'll run the angle grinder up and down while spraying with water. This is what I did on the previous tile. It cuts more pulling towards you, so you get more cut when it pulls towards you, and then as you're pushing away, it's not as harsh. So just be careful with that with chips, and just keep going carefully. Let the blade do the work. The reason the towel's there as well is to stop vibrations, and then that'll cut that off. Also, just a little tip: if you get any chips on your tiles, I bought myself some of these buffing pads for my angle grinder, and these just polish out the chips on the tiles. So there are all the tiles. That's how they fit. They're in dry. They're not adhesived down yet. The spare cut off bits we used on the right hand side there because they'll be under the vanity unit, and I just put some holes through for the pipes like this. Basically you go in at an angle and then tilt it up vertical eventually and spray with water. Again, let the blade do the work. Don't press too hard. You don't want to crack your tile. And there it is, just with water on, just cool the blade down and make the blade last longer. It prevents the diamonds from wearing too quick because the heat kills the diamonds. And there's my hole. So I spread my adhesive and started sticking down the floor tiles. I used traditional tile spacers because we didn't have that many grout lines. I made sure they were all level with the spirit level, and then used a piece of tile just to run across to make sure they were perfectly level. And there they are in place, all adhesived. I left them 24 hours. Make sure you take your time with this. You know, you want your floor perfectly level. Them grout lines need to really be really level and smooth. So when you put the grout in, it looks perfect. This is basically me putting the smoked colour grout into the lines. I used a teaspoon, you know, because it just got the grout in where I wanted it. I spread the grout along, and then I just pressed it in. And I went over it a couple of times, pressing to make sure that grout goes all the way in. Because there wasn't many grout lines, you know, it didn't take that long. Just smoothed it over and got rid of the excess. Just like that. Now, I know this isn't a grout sponge, but I used a little sponge just to get these grout lines perfect because I wanted them really level. And there's the finished floor. Grouted, all sloping where it should. Adhesive set. Decoupling mat in. The decoupling mat just stops if the wooden floor underneath moves, it stops the movement affecting the tiles. So it's quite important you put that in. I didn't put it under the shower tray because the shower tray was too thick and it'd affect my levels. Okay, shower seat. My wife wanted a shower seat / leg support for shaving her legs, so we needed to install that. So I measured from the corner about 42 centimeters, I think it was, and the plan was to do like a triangle seat like this. So you can see my measurements on the wall. I'm basically figuring out where the wooden joists are, the structural timbers inside the wall, so I can screw into them. So you can see the triangular shape there where I've screwed into the walls. I've used the big concrete screws for my wood. I do often use these, they're really strong. The seat needed to be super strong and not move, so you can see me testing it there. And then I cladded it with plywood, top and side. And the final stage would be to just fill the edges and then add the tanking. So again, C1 and the tanking tape all around the edges to make this completely watertight. I'm now going to move on to tiling the wall. That's fully tanked with C1, 2 coats. I screwed a piece of aluminium edging, 300 from my tile floor, did that level, and then we went and measured 30 centimeters in, that's half a tile, to make the wall look even on both sides. Again, mix the same flexible adhesive. I've got my tiles, I've got a large mortar trowel and my wall adhesive spreader. Also got this system for spacers. So I'm just going to show you a video here of me putting on the adhesive and then spreading it with my adhesive trowel. So this is the spacing system I used. They're basically spacers that go underneath the tiles while the adhesive's wet. You put them on all the edges, obviously top, sides, and then you put the tiles up to them spacers as you're putting them on. So there you can see the tile butted up to that spacer, and then you get the wedges and you slide the wedges in the hole underneath, and you have a special tool which basically clamps the wedges into the spacer and lifts the spacer up, which then levels your tiles. And I found them really good to use. You can see a video here now of me just basically clamping. You set your distance on that clamp so every wedge goes in at exactly the same distance, which pulls the tile up flat, level, and then after 24 hours, or if you've got rapid set a bit quicker, you just knock them off. I used a rubber hammer just so I didn't break the tiles, and that's it really. More progress pictures going around that corner, same again. I used a scorer for the straight tile cuts, so a tile scorer, it made life quicker and easier, and then the angle grinder for the more intricate, difficult cuts. Like this L shape that goes around the window, I'm going to be mitering all my tiles, and this is my first miter, so I've never really done it before. I had watched a few videos on how to do it, but I came up with my own style. So what I did was I scored the edges at 45 degree, if that makes sense, about an inch apart. And then I ground down the edges with the side of the blade that has diamonds. And because they were scored, it made it easier to grind. This way I got a nice 45 degree angle with little effort really. So there's my first mitered tile. I was happy with it and I was happy to continue doing this. So here's the progress. We've got a full wall, we've worked around the edges, and we've done our first miter. So basically, I'll just carry on from here. Okay, more around the window. So you can see the dotted lines. Now, this is for accuracy, and I think accuracy is really important with tiling. So that's where I'd run my blade. So my angle grinder would go along the dotted line edge as to not take up any of the tile that's needed, if that makes sense. So more tiling around the window. The edges really do take longer than the walls, you know. This is what's going to take your time. So accuracy, again, is really important. I've marked that. And I've also marked which way I need to do the mitering. And there you can see blue tape just holding that small piece to keep it in place. I use decorated tape for that. You can see the accuracy there of that edge. And then, again, round the top of the window is one tile. So we've marked that up using the actual tiles on the wall. So I worked my way around this other wall and got to the doorway, which is also mitered. As you can see, the whole doorway is going to be mitered. So you can see the progress here, and you can see the door I'm mitering round. To get to this progress was really rewarding. You can feel the bathroom and you can tell how good it's going to look in the end. So I decided to work on the other side of the bathroom. This is above where the shower aqua base is. And these tiles match up to the shower niche. And I don't know if you can remember from the beginning of the video, I wanted to get the shower niche perfectly in line with the tiles that run across. So you can see here how the tiles are going to finish on the shower niche. Now knowing this accurate information, it enables me to get the exact base of the shower niche cut out and formed, structurally made out of timber, and then waterproofed and tanked. So this video you can see me adjusting the shower niche because now I know the exact finish of them tiles. It's a bit more than 10 mil. So this is why I only did a rough opening before. So I'm basically just going to cut this out with the multi-tool to the exact level that the tiles finish. And I'll take out the timbers as well. And then what we'll do is build a timber frame out of the same size timbers that are there. So there's the timber frame built, and we then go and do the tanking. So I put the tanking tape all around and then the C1 bal on them backboards. So carrying up the wall, I got to my shower controller and outlet. I marked up the points and then drew a square using a set square to match up them points. And then we used our angle grinder. I've sped this up. So we're going to use our angle grinder to first go around the back until we see them notches in the front, and then go to the front and just finish it off. Like I say, I have sped this up, but you can see the ease of using this diamond blade angle grinder. We'll just cut that out. And there's the finished tiles around the controller and the outlet. So here you see more hard work tiling around the niche. I've mitered them tiles that all go around the niche, and that's that wall complete. I then move on to the bottom area. So just tiling around the bottoms and getting all that finished. Cutting holes out for the radiator pipes which stick out there. We've got a black radiator coming, so we had black valves fitted. And that was most of the walls complete. I moved on to tiling the shower seat. So I used some wrapping paper to create the triangle that fits in that corner, then placed it on the tile as a template to make the perfect cuts. You can see it there, it fits absolutely perfect. I did the same with the triangles on the edge. I used a paper template to get them angles perfect. They slotted in like they were made to be there. The bottom of the shower seat was quite straightforward. They were just straight cuts. And there it is complete, ready for sealing and grouting. That's all tanked off and we know it's sturdy, so that should last for years. So I moved back to the niche and I was mitering the thin bits of tile that go inside the niche. A tip as well, use decorator's tape to pull your miters together just to make them edges as tight as possible. You can see the aluminium profile I got for my LED strips. This is, well, the LED strips are waterproof and this also adds more waterproofing protection to that LED strip, just in case it gets any splashes or what have you. So there's the shower niche as it is so far. We just need the top bits to do, and I'll come back to do them once the rest of it's dry. I mean, you can see why it's important to wait and get your measurements right. So them back tiles were perfectly 300 tall and they just slotted straight in. Here's a quick image of the tiles in the top. You can see how I've had to notch it around one of the tiles and how they're cut a bit slimmer to allow for the aluminium profile. There's more mitering around the window, and then I started mitering around the doors, cut the thin strips to go down there, and you can see how they fit in and miter. I really think it's worth doing this because it makes your door opening feel like more part of the room, makes it feel chunkier and more quality. The little details like this all add to the finish. And that's the doorway there, and I've held these up with screws and timber just to stop them falling out. Right, I decided to epoxy resin my miters, and that means getting some epoxy resin, colour matching it to the same colour as a tile, and then adding it into your cracks with the spatula, smoothing it out. So this is me just adding the resin into the crack. You basically do that and let it go off, and then you spray it with water and smooth it with your finger. And this is the kind of finish you get. It just blends in with your tiles. It's a really professional finish. And I think I'd do this method every single time I tile now. I love it. So once all my epoxy was done and dry, I went on to grouting. And this is the smoke grout that matches the stuff that I used in the floor. So these are just some pictures of me grouting. Basically, I spread the grouting exactly like I did the floor, compact it into them gaps, and then let it go off. You can see these pictures, it's gone a bit cloudy and a bit powdery, and then just wipe it off with a sponge and keep wiping it until it becomes clean once completely dry. One of the final steps is sealing. So I sealed all around the edges with some quality sealant that's smoke grey that matches my grout. I used tape to get that perfect crisp line. In this video you can see me removing the tape and how satisfying it was to see that crisp line, knowing that sealant's going to prevent any water from going down the back of my shower tray. Although if it did, it doesn't really matter because it's tanked off anyway. So I fitted my shower holder, which was quite a simple job. After doing all the tiling, these jobs seem easy. And then I went on to fit my radiator using a tile drill bit. I think there was 6mm. Take your time, spray it with water. So them 4 holes there for my radiator bracket. The plugs I used were just standard plasterboard plugs, but because they were going into tile, they fit really snug. And then the screws going into them, they just felt really secure. And that's for all the fittings and fixtures throughout the bathroom. This method worked really well. So there's the radiator mounted. We went with matte black for all the fittings, including the tap. I got the square valves as well to match. That was off eBay. As was the black shaver socket. The wires just went into the same holes as the previous one, so it's quite easy to wire up. I got my electrician to check all the wiring, and he signed that off for us, so we knew we were safe and good to go. Last thing to do is to fit the vanity unit. So I started with the toilet on the left hand side, extended that soil pipe with a straight extender and then an elbow, which then slots into the back of the toilet. The drainage waste pipes for the sink marked up with a pen as before, and use solvent cement to cement them together in the right shape. As you can see, there's a few bends and angles to the soil pipe, so it's important that you mock this up by putting them together dry, mark them with a black pen, and then solvent weld them together so you've got the angles. I had to cut some of the vanity unit out to enable me to get the waste pipe through. It's going to be fastened onto the wall anyway. Talking of fastened onto the wall, this is the bracket for the toilet cistern. So I put the screws straight through the bracket into the wall, which also held the toilet cabinet. So that bracket for the cistern just holds the cistern like that. You just drop it on. And then you plumb all that in. You connect up the water, you can see on the right hand side there. And once that's connected, you plumb in the soil pipe. And then this is me just giving it a test. So the water's turned on, it's not dripping. And there it is filling up the cistern. So we know that that's all working properly, can continue. On this you get a little panel that clips onto the front of the toilet cabinet. I drilled a hole the correct size for my flush and just inserted that into there. It gives it a nice flush finish. Next was time to install the tap. So there's my hot and cold. There's my sink unit. I just screwed that to the back wall. This is my waste for my sink. I just screwed that up and put some silicone in between it. And there's my tap installed. That's just screwed on tightly to the sink using rubber seals. And then my waste trap, again, used black lines to mark up where I needed to solvent weld that pipe because of the angles. You can see the black lines there. And then just attach that waste trap. My hot and cold were put on using isolation valves. And this is my sink and tap just working as it should. Again, checking for leaks before I go any further. It seemed fine. So the final stage was to install the ceiling. So I used some roofing battens and just screwed them into the joists in the ceiling. And then I used the PVC cladding and cut holes out for my spotlights. And basically just screwed the cladding into the battens to give me a new ceiling that looks like this. And that's it really. Bathroom complete. It didn't take too long. I think 75 hours total. But I got the finish I wanted. It was done to a high standard. And I saved myself £7,000. So I do recommend having a go at this yourself. It's great to then advertise your house as an accessible bathroom. So anybody in a wheelchair can access this bathroom because there's no steps or shower tray humps to get over. And it just gives you more space than normal.